So these days, everybody likes to talk about the big fat loss habits. Walk 10,000 steps a day, track your calories, eat a high protein diet, and yeah, those are the basics, but nobody talks about what happens when you're hungry, low energy, tired, and your motivation to do any of that is gone. And in my experience, that's when the real work starts, and that's where I found that having the right small daily habits makes all the difference. So in this video, I want to walk you through my top 10 small daily habits that I use to get to 10% body fat and that have the biggest impact on my ability to get lean. So let's dive right into it, starting with nutrition. And the first small habit which helped me stop falling off track in the evenings. Because what used to happen for a long time is I'd be very disciplined early in the day, hit my macros, stick to the plan, everything was fine. But then as the day goes by, I get tired and hungry and eventually ruin everything in the evening because I was overeating for dinner or having snacks afterwards. And if you do that 3 to 4 times a week, you don't really see much progress. So the small habit that I started doing is saving 50% of my calories for the evening when I actually need them. So on a typical day, I would skip breakfast because I'm not really hungry when I wake up, and then I would have a 600 calorie high protein lunch and a smaller 400 calorie high protein meal in the afternoon, which would leave me with about 1,000 calories for dinner and a small snack afterwards. And this small shift in how I'm organizing my calories completely solved my evening overeating problem because I wasn't as hungry, and this made staying on track so much easier. Now the second habit I implemented was to help me balance lifestyle and nutrition, because I realized that no matter how good my plan is, eventually it will break. You'll underestimate a meal, you're gonna go eat out, you're gonna say yes to something that you didn't plan for, and suddenly it's gonna feel like you blew it. And that's where this next habit works great. Instead of trying to hit the same calorie target every day, I started auto-regulating my intake. If I knew that I had a big meal coming up, like a birthday or a dinner out, I'd eat 150-200 calories less in 2-3 days leading up to that, so I'd have an extra 300 to 600 calories to work with. It's like creating a little buffer zone. So when that bigger meal comes, I can enjoy it without panicking or feeling like I ruined the diet because I simply made it a part of the plan. And if I accidentally go over calories, I just lowered intake by 150-200 calories for a few days and I'm good to go. Because the goal isn't to be perfect every day. It's to be consistent week to week. One bad meal can be an accident. Happens to all of us. But if it's a whole day of overeating, well, now that's a choice. And this auto-regulation habit really helped me break free from that all or nothing black and white mindset where one bad meal turns into a bad day and then it turns into a whole week off track. Now, the third habit I didn't even know would be an issue for me until I wanted to get to 10% body fat. I remember back when I was working as a software engineer, I had this routine of snacking at my computer. I'd be deep into work and I'd be mindlessly reaching for stuff like nuts or protein bars or whatever else was available at the office. I'd probably be eating like 400 or 500 calories without even thinking, and I wasn't paying attention to calories back then. And when I wanted to get lean, this habit started resurfacing and destroying my progress. And I really had to figure out how to manage this mindless snacking. So what I started doing is that if I get an urge to grab a snack now, I first drink some water and set a timer for myself for 30 minutes. I know it sounds weird, but it works really well. I found out that 8 out of 10 times the craving just goes away and I completely forget I even wanted to eat. And in this case, it was not really about using more willpower to try to discipline and push through it. It was more about creating that space between the impulse to eat and the action of eating. And that little bit of pause is often all you need to fix this. Now, this next one is a subtle habit, but I think now more than ever, people need to hear it. So when your calories are low and you're trying to stay in a calorie deficit, every meal matters. And I noticed that if I'm scrolling and multitasking while eating, I barely register the food. An hour later, I'm hungry again. I also noticed that if I'm stressed going into a meal, I eat much faster and I don't chew the food enough. So I implemented a simple rule: no distractions and fast eating. If I'm not calm, I'm gonna first pause for a moment, I'm gonna take a couple of deep breaths before I start eating the meal. It's simple, but it works. I eat slower, I enjoy the food more, and I feel full for longer. And these are the little things that add up to making a big difference. Now, shifting to training a bit, there's one small habit that helps me get way more out of my workouts. Because we all know that lifting weights is critical for retaining muscle, especially when you want to get to 10% body fat. But we also know that when calories are low, especially for a long time, it does start affecting the quality of your workouts. So instead of randomly doing my workouts whenever I have some time, which I used to do in the past, now whenever I'm cutting down to 10% body fat, I'm much more mindful when I do my workouts. I try to place my workouts in times times that I have the most energy. So I'd usually work out 2 hours after a meal. I try to place some of the hardest workout sessions on a weekend when I'm not drained from work as much, and this really helped me retain my strength levels, and I even get some PRs while in a deficit. The sessions feel much better and I can push much harder. And the deeper you are in a fat loss phase, you realize that the fewer great workouts you're gonna get. So each one of those workouts counts, and you really gotta make the most out of it. Now, habit 6 is very simple to implement, yet it has massive leverage. When dieting, it's very common to blame hunger or low energy on food or sleep or just being tired. And yeah, those are definitely important and contributing factors, but after coaching so many people over the years, I realized that it's also because people don't drink enough water. When we get very busy with work, it's easy to completely forget about hydration. Having a glass of water after each meal is simply not enough, and even a little bit of dehydration can impact your cognitive performance and your performance in the gym. So a small habit that I do to fix this is I make sure to keep a water bottle within arm's reach all day. This completely removes the friction for the habit and makes staying hydrated automatic. I know that if I refill my water bottle 3 times a day, I'm gonna hit my intake goal. My energy is better, my hunger is lower, training is improved, and the whole system works better. Now, speaking of the system, one of the keys to getting to 10% body fat is keeping a high amount of activity. And this is where I personally aim for 10,000 steps a day. But on a very busy day, when you've been sitting at a desk all the time and you check your watch and see you only got 1,200 steps, 10,000 can seem pretty far. So what I started doing to work around this issue is implement what I call mini walks. For every 1 hour of sitting, I walk for 5 minutes. During a typical 8-hour workday, that's 40 minutes of walking without even scheduling it. For me, that's about 5,000 extra steps. And mini walks aren't there just to help me burn more calories. They help me stay focused and creative so I get things done, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And it's a small commitment. It's just 5 minutes. But if you stack that over a week or a month or several months, it really adds up. Now, there's another small habit that has just recently become essential in my daily routine. So I realized that whenever I have a busy, stressful day, I tend to stay up longer and tend to push my sleep by about 30-40 minutes to get some extra me time to try to relax after a long day. And whenever this happens a few times a week, it tends to accumulate and I end up sleep deprived. Hunger is worse, and it's really hard to stay disciplined with the diet. So what I started doing recently is setting up a go-to-bed alarm. The same way I use a wake-up alarm to start the day, I use the go-to-bed alarm to end the day, to start shutting things down and preparing for sleep. And especially after becoming a dad, this habit has become more important because I have way less time and you never know when you need to get up at night for whatever reason to help out. And when your goal is 10 or 12% body fat, you really can't afford to be sleep deprived or have 3 or 4 days of less sleep because everything starts falling apart. Now, speaking of getting very lean, another thing that becomes much harder is trusting the process. Because when you're tracking things like your calories, protein, steps, and weight on a regular basis, you see things fluctuate a lot. The number on the scale goes up and down, you end up stuck for a few days even though calories are low and you've been putting in maximum effort, and it's really easy to start second guessing yourself and fall into the trap of putting way too much emphasis on one measurement. So one of the small habits I got into way back is always averaging out all the metrics. I still weigh myself every morning, but I only look at the weekly average. Same with steps and calories. One bad day doesn't mean I destroyed my progress. Same as one good day doesn't mean that I've just nailed it. What matters is the overall trend. By paying attention to averages, you're able to emotionally detach yourself from the numbers and see what's really going on. You avoid those panic moments where you might weigh in 4 or 5 pounds heavier because you retain more water, but in fact, if you look at it week to week, you're still making a lot of progress. And now, one of my favorite small habits that connects everything for me and helps me be more consistent is more of a mental one. So whenever I'm faced with a decision, whether it's to grab some food or training or sleep related, I ask myself a simple question. Does this decision move me closer to my goal or further away from my goal? And this is a yes or no question. It's there to put things in perspective because I don't want to base my decision on how I feel in the moment. I want to base it on my true goal. And when you start filtering through this lens, you gain a lot of clarity. You stop rationalizing bad habits, you stop making excuses, and you really start aligning yourself with the goal. Because ultimately, getting to 10% body fat is nothing more than a compound effect of the small decisions that you make over time. Each choice is a vote for the result you're gonna get and the person you're gonna become. And once you realize that, you start taking your choices a lot more seriously, because you don't get to 10% body fat by doing one thing perfectly for 2 to 3 weeks. You get there by doing a lot of small daily habits consistently for many months. So try a few of these habits that I mentioned, pick the ones that fit into your routine and test them out. And if you're looking to get lean, I spent the last 10 years coaching people to help them get their ideal physique and build a healthy lifestyle. So if you'd like to work with me, details for coaching are in the description below, so check those out. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm gonna see you in my next video.